Hello guys and welcome. I hope that you're well. My name is I play 4K, aka I play 8K, aka I play 16K or UHDking 15360 by 8640.com, UHDking.com. Today I'm going to show you and explain to you why the two Xeons E5 2699 V3 CPUs are still a great buy even in 2022 and 2023. During this video I'm going to show you AIDA64 EXtreme Edition, okay, CPU Z. Here's the CPU Z as verification as well. And as user of this platform for around 1 year, guys, absolutely amazing performance out of this workstation. It's running on a Chinese motherboard that is modifiable. It's cheap. I purchased it for $110, but right now it's $150 because of my videos. It's a beautiful ZX DU99D4 version 1.11, but newer versions will be also great on dual socket motherboards. Chinese call it dual socket X99, but pretty much it's C612 server platform. It's beautiful and has a 2 PCI Express version 3.0 times 16. It has a lot of SATA ports. You can run RAID on it. You can run the M2 on it. It's water cooled. My CPUs are water cooled. My two Xeons E5 2699 V3 are water cooled, but with the Corsair H150i Pro coolers, 360 millimeter radiators, and I'm only using one fan when they under heavy load, and the temperature never reach above 65 Celsius with one fan. But when I'm going to use three fans on those 360 millimeter radiators, three fans, 120 millimeter Corsair fans, the temperature will be like 58, 59 Celsius maximum per CPU. Okay, so we will never thermal throttle at all. Each CPU has 18 cores and 36 threads. Today those two CPUs running stock. I did not modify the BIOS yet, but keep in mind over the UHDking.com I'm going to show you how to modify the BIOS on this Chinese motherboard, and also check the video description. I'm going to put where the description of the parts and where you can purchase them from great sellers. Sellers that I trust, and if you're looking to pretty much follow my experience and build the system yourself, the Mozilla version 2.0 workstation, keep in mind that you're doing it on your own risk and expenses. Nobody will compensate you, but I will try to provide experience as best as I could so you can make your own choice. Okay, socket 1, socket 2, because two CPUs, guys, each of them running 2.8 gigahertz maximum frequency that is allowed when you're running 18 cores, 36 threads on the stock BIOS. Dual socket motherboards, Xeon E5 2699 V3 processors by Intel. So when they're going to be loaded completely, it's going to be 2400 megahertz or 2.4 gigahertz because 24 multiplier. Okay, and if it's going to reach so hot under this condition, it's going to kick it to 14 multiplier, 12 multiplier, not 14 but 12 multiplier, which is the minimum multiplier, which is 1.2 gigahertz. It's kicking it only when the temperature on the CPU is crucial. So thermal throttling to 12 multiplier, and 12 multiplier times 100 bus speed, which is the BCLK frequency, 100 megahertz times 28 will be 2.8 gigahertz or 2800 megahertz, or 2400 megahertz under the full load on all 18 physical cores or 36 threads when hyper-threading technology is enabled, because it's giving you additional 18 cores for free, but it's kind of like a virtual cores. Okay, so it's doubled, as you can see. So it's 72 logical processors or logical cores or logical threads in Windows, Linux, Macintosh. here we go, maximum PCI Express version 3.0, 8 gigatexels per second, 16 times, so I can run 2 Titan RTXs without any issues. I'm having 176 gigabytes in quad channel DDR4. It's going to be a desktop memory. It's not going to be a server memory. Keep that in mind. So this memory is unregistered. Desktop memory, I'm using the Team Group and Corsair's 3200 MHz CL14 and much more expensive like 3600 MHz and 4200 MHz, but it can run 2103 MHz CL14 and even CL13 without any issues, but this motherboard is not booting with CL13. So CPU Z is not showing the latency delays correctly. It should be 14, 15, 15, 28, 1T command. Okay. Here we go. Titan RTX video card is installed, but today is not about the Titan RTX. It's going to be focused on a CPU benchmarks. Keep that in mind. So you can have any video cards. You can have even better video card or just a much cheaper video card. It doesn't matter. So this how this 2 Xeons or Dual Xeons E5-2699 V3 processors by Intel scored 13,000. So it's scoring when you don't have any applications on the background, when you just boot up, everything is closed, open up the CPU Z, it's scoring above 13,000 points under the CPU multi-thread benchmark under the CPU Z version 1.98.064-bit. Okay, and it's showing like above 40 physical cores in real life performance. So this is the real life performance right here, guys. 41 core at least, almost 42 cores. This is excellent, and this is only the scenario when you're going to use CL14 on your DDR4. So CL14 should be switched in the BIOS of this motherboard and everything else at auto. So it's going to be 14, 15, 15, and 39, I believe. I'm going to show you guys in a second, but with the 1T command. And in quad channel, it's going to boost up that CPU to system RAM performance, that latency delay to make it shorter. So it's going to be, or make it quicker, the latency delay in terms of nanoseconds, and you're going to benefit. Okay, and benefit a lot. I'm going to explain to you why these CPUs are locked in dual socket motherboards to 2133 megahertz, which is 1064 times 2 because it's DDR4, which is 2133 megahertz. Okay, in a second, guys, when we're going to go through the AIDA64 EXtreme, keep that in mind. So 313 points of the single thread performance, but as again, we're not looking at the single thread performance, because if you're looking to boost up the single thread performance on those 2 Xeons E5-2699 V3 CPUs, even without any overclocks, you can do it through the BIOS, even throughout without the BIOS modification, just through the BIOS features. Go into the BIOS. I'm going to show it to you throughout my videos how to do it. It's going to be just another video, but you can boost up to 365, something like that, and single thread performance will be much faster. Keep that in mind. But when you're using completely stock untouched BIOS features and BIOS settings and without the BIOS modification, somebody call it hacks, I'm gonna show you how to do it, but it pretty much is boosting up the performance out of those 2 Xeon E5-2699 V3 CPUs. You can boost up that, but you're not gonna boost up this. Or you can modify the BIOS and you can boost up both. You can boost up the single thread performance and multi-thread performance, okay, if you're gonna get lucky. It's not guaranteed, but we're gonna find out how well we can boost up on this motherboard, okay. I only have one motherboard, guys, and it's so scary to modify the BIOS. So hopefully it's going to go well. As again, you're doing this, if you repeating this experience for yourself, you're doing it on your own risk and expenses. Keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and compare with the CPUs real quick. So as you can see, guys, the 5950X 16-core processor, which is the pretty much the flagship by AMD for the regular user, for the gamer and regular workstation user, which is a great processor, but costs $650 with the tax, $700 in 2021. By the end of this video, as you can see, December 27, 2021, almost a new year, 2022. And it's like $700 for the tax, and I paid $125 per each, $125 per each CPU, so total $250 from a local e-recycle company. So in the beginning of 2020, but right now it's inflation, but it's gonna go down, and each of the CPUs, Xeon E5-2699 V3 CPUs, will cost $125-$140 in the end of 2022. And if the 5950X is not going to cost $450, then I would better go with two Xeon E5-2699 V3 if I do not play any games. I'm using this system as a web server, as vMachine emulator, or as 3D renderer, 3D render workstation, 3D render firm, or video encoder. When you pretty much doing the video encoding and utilizing all the 72 logical cores, because when you're doing the 3D rendering, if you're 3D artist, pretty much you're going to utilize 72 logical cores in 3ds Max, Blender, and Cinema 4D applications without any issues. Those 72 logical cores will be utilized without any issues. Even 128 cores will be utilized without any issues. And on the budget, if each CPU will cost $150 in the end of 2022, it's a great system if the 5950X costs about $450. Okay, keep that in mind. And I will include the motherboard for you in the video description. Go ahead and look for the same kind of motherboard. It's going to be different brands, but it's kind of the same motherboard. They just rebranding those Chinese brands. They're rebranding them, but the look of the motherboard will be the same on all the motherboard. And you gotta ask for the seller the DU ZX-DU99 D4 version 1-11 or newer. Make sure that BIOS will be like that. Okay, if you're going to try this experience. So this is, guys, the processors. I'm comparing the processor for you. As you can see, the system is blowing fast when you need those cores, when you're going to utilize all the 72 logical processors or logical cores. And exactly like 3D rendering, video encoding, exactly why I built this system for. This is where you're going to take a solid advantage over even the modern CPUs, and by a lot, as you can see. Okay. Alright, so here we go. 77K, look at this. We almost by 6 times faster in 3D rendering, and if I'm going to modify the BIOS, it's probably going to be like 15,000, something like that score. So we're going to be like at least by 6 times faster than 7700K. I'm looking 15,000 score multi-threaded performance, guys, when I'm going to modify the BIOS. So wish me the luck. So this is the stock performance, as again, out of those two Xeons E5-2699 V3, and I'm very happy about them. So total with the motherboard, I invested $250 for the CPUs and $110 for the motherboard. So pretty much $360, and then of course the memory, I put all my memory available and purchased some, a team group, and make up 176 gig, more than enough, guys, for 3D rendering and even video encoding. You don't need to have 256 gigabytes unless you're running the system RAM disk. Okay, and I'm going to show you a video what kind of scenarios where you need to have system RAM disk over the UHDking.com. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great video about it. So alright, so I showed you the introduction about the system. Sorry, I went into the basics because a lot of newbies, a lot of beginners are watching us, hardware enthusiasts, overclockers, technologists. So here we go, guys. Let me go first through the benchmarks. As you can see, in the orange will be my system. So this is the system RAM read, right, which is for DDR4 2133 megahertz, is not going to be big score, but just because I'm using the quad channel, it's still a nice score. As you can see, we're still like pushing almost at the top of the list of today's 2021 technologies, because today I'm using the AIDA64 EXtreme, the latest version. Okay, and by the way, something special coming for you guys throughout this video. So memory latency right here, 134 nanoseconds. So latency, of course, CL14 kind of with 2133 megahertz, it's kind of going to be not so great, 130 nanoseconds. Keep in mind that I'm pushing below 45 nanoseconds when I'm using DDR4 clock at 3000 megahertz CL10, and this is when my DDR 5000 by Corsair CL16 is used like that. 3000 megahertz CL10, the latency is 45 nanoseconds. It's so quick. Access from the processor's cores to the system RAM is just unbelievable. And as again, I'm going to explain to you why you need this type of scenarios in a second. But this is the system RAM, guys. Okay, and you can install the registered server RAM on it, but I'm not advising you because you're gonna overpay for it. Go ahead and buy yourself DDR4 desktop and buff it right now. In 2022, completely 2022, DDR4 will be cheap because the DDR5 is introduced, is going to conquer the market, and it's DDR4 will be cheap. And in 2023, it's gonna go up in prices again because they're not gonna make it any longer. It's going to be limited in stocks. So keep that in mind, guys. All right. So CPU Queen. So this is the CPU performance now, and this is right now we can see the raw CPU performance, but as again it's showing 2.8 gigahertz or 2800 megahertz, but pretty much it's going to be 2.4 gigahertz when all the cores utilize, and it's utilizing not all the cores. It's like kind of not 100% CPU utilization, but around 70, something like that. As again, if I'm and we were running when CPU utilization 70-90%, we're gonna run 2.8 gigahertz or 2800 megahertz. So this is correct. This is not should be 2.4 gigahertz, but 2.8 gigahertz or 2800 megahertz. Okay, and yeah, so we will try to boost it up to 3600 megahertz after our BIOS modification, but it's going to be in another video over the UHDking.com. Pretty amazing score we are toward, guys. We pushing very close to 2990. That CPU costs like $1,400 right now in 2021. $1,400 with the investment of $250 CPU, and the motherboard for that CPU will cost like $200 at least. Okay, and if I'm going to boost up to 3600 megahertz, there is a possibility we're going to get close to the Ryzen Threadripper 3970 with the HD enabled. Okay, very close to it, and I cannot wait. And it's running absolutely amazing motherboard, as you can see, Asus Extreme. Okay, and much faster DDR4 than our DDR4, but just because those processors, logical processor cores that we got through the hyper-threading technology, and while utilizing 2 physical cores on each CPUs totally, this is how fast the CPU, guys, as Workstation is again. The photo works, it's kind of in Photoshop, how you're going to be in Photoshop, almost at the top list, as you can see, but as again, it's not utilizing all the cores at all. It's probably going to be like 60%, 50% of the cores total utilization, so that's why we're not going to take a solid lead over here. And you can see the processors with the last CPU cores, same family, Xeon E5-2699 V3 running even faster, because as again, faster latency, delay, and etc. And it's not about the cores. So PhotoWorks is about the frequency. Okay, CPU Queen is about the cores. CPU PhotoWorks is about the frequency. As again, guys, I'm trying to explain to every single beginner. Just keep that in mind. And just because I'm trying to explain the 2 Xeon E5-2699 V3 experience in depth for those who's building this system, for the low budget folks building the beautiful 3D workstation or rendering or web server, for those type of people, and I'm trying to explain everything, so you can go ahead and skip maybe a little bit, go in the middle of the video. So CPU's zlib, this is the archiving, and somehow it's utilizing a lot of cores, but as again, it's not utilizing completely 100% of our CPU. But it's almost close to 100% of our CPU cores, and as you can see, we also torque. So this is where the cores. This is where we're talking the cores and then the frequency. Okay, CPU AES. Okay, encryption. This is where we're talking kind of frequency and cores. The utilization in about 30%, maybe it's utilizing like 4 or 6 cores maximum, something like that. So as again, we're talking the frequency first. Okay, and instruction per second. The newer CPUs, guys, have the better instruction per second computing performance. Keep that in mind. So even at the same frequency, they can perform 10 or 15 times at least faster, because they have they can compute more instruction per clock. Okay, IPC. But we can only compensate it with the cores, like this 2 Mammoth from 2015, only with the cores, only in the scenarios when, as again, 3D rendering, video encoding, or whatever the scenario is, when you're utilizing all the 100% of CPU, all the 72 logical cores. This is another method of encryption using a lot of cores. This is about the cores now, and as you can see, we're beating up 2990 WX, where we're talking legacy code, multi-threaded legacy code. We're gonna destroy the Ryzen. But as again, just because we're not utilizing the AVX2 instructions, probably because at AVX2 instructions, maybe Ryzen Threadripper 2990 WX with HT will take a lead. But as again, it's only running 3000 megahertz. But 3970X HT not far away from us by 3000 points, as you can see. Okay, and maybe when I'm going to overclock those two Xeons E5-2699 V3 through some tweaking, through the BIOS modification, maybe we're gonna reach to that 3970X hair to hair, and I'm going to be so happy. So my goal is to beat 3960X Threadripper by AMD with HT, and I'm going to be so happy in all the applications in 2021. But the problem is, guys, with the newer application that will utilize the AVX2 and AVX3 and newer AVX, this is where the system will become slower, slower, and slower. So it's going to be like 2023-2025. This is where you will see the newer applications. The system is not pulling the performance versus the same CPUs, because those CPUs will have the better instructions built in and features on those CPUs, and the new code will utilize those features and instructions. Okay, FPU Julia. Also using heavy CPU tests, heavy CPU cores. Beautiful score, guys. Second, absolutely amazing. Value without the DDR4 and without the Titan RTX, value only below $400. This is just unbelievable. And this should be the value, your value in the end of 2023, 2022, and beginning or middle 2023. Maximum investment $400. Motherboard and 2 CPUs, and better be a motherboard from China that you can modify, and you better be sure that you can modify. Keep in mind that all the great motherboard by ASUS, Micro, Dell, and etc. are not modifiable. They're all closed. MSI, etc. Gigabyte. Okay, so you want to use those Chinese motherboards because their BIOS is not closed, and it allows you to modify it. Look at this. We pushing such a great thing over here. Mandel. St. Julia, we also third. Also CPU core, heavy CPU core, and then the frequency. So first cores and then the frequency. This is where we're taking advantages again when the cores. This is the 3D rendering, FP32 retrace. So this is the retracing based on CPU real quick, 32-bit, and a floating point 32. And as you can see, guys, the number 4, great result, and 12,900K HD, such a great processor, guys. Even when we're talking the multi-threading capabilities, because with the less cores, but with that high instruction per core computing performance, power, it's just destroying even the CPUs with a lot of cores. So 12,900K, guys, should be a great CPU to have a look on it, especially in the end of 2022 when the prices will go down, when it's going to lose around $50, and it will lose around 50 at least dollars, maybe even $100 when AMD will release Ryzen 9 6000 series. But Ryzen 9 6000 series, guys, will be pretty much a chocolate candy from your grandma. It's going to be unbelievable. Okay, so I really in love with the performance right now out of this Mozilla version 2 system. As again, guys, I'm coming in real time. I'm not reading this information. I'm just watching with you and commenting. So we're going all together. This soundtrack on the background is pretty much copyrighted, and I have the commercial license, so no royalties can be claimed. Keep that in mind. So yeah, and the temperature is great. It's just unbelievable. So on stock it's beautiful, but imagine 3.6, we're probably going to be over here in second place somewhere, and this is exactly what I'm hoping for this system. As again, I made this system for you guys, but this is became a secondary system and then became my first system, and I'm not using my i9-9900K, guys, any longer somehow, because I'm not playing too much of the games, but I'm going to record a lot of gameplays in 16K resolution and 8K resolution over the UHDking.com. But mostly I'm focused as Workstation to writing code, doing some graphics, video encoding and such, you know. And this system is such a great investment, guys, for low budget folks. It's just unbelievable, and you can game on it. And I'm going to show you over the UHDking.com that you can game on this system as well, and it's playing games beautifully without any issues. Alright, so let me show you the CPU. This is the CPU. As again, I'm just going to go with you. 72 logical, as you can see. Okay. And as you can see, under maximum load 23 multiplier, and then thermal throttling 12, just like I explained to you. 45 megabytes level 3rd cache per, it's shared per each core. So the last core you have when you're disabling the cores in the BIOS, it's going to be talk for the gamers. When you're playing games, you want to disable the cores in the BIOS. Maximum what you want to leave for this CPU is 4 cores per CPU. When you're running dual socket, 2 of those Xeon E5-2699 V3. Otherwise, do not buy a single Xeon E5-2699 V3, guys, because it's a bad investment. 2 of them, it's a great investment when each below $200, but if you're buying only 1, it's a bad investment. It's also going to be a great investment if you already have Xeon E5-2699 V3 CPU. Keep that in mind. So 90 megabytes total for those 72 logical cores, but when you're running 8 cores total, 90 megabytes, above 10 megabytes, like 12 megabytes per core. This is just unbelievable, and especially when you're playing games. So 8 physical cores, and you can enable the hyper-threading technology and still be at 3.3 gigahertz only when you're running 2 of those CPUs, because otherwise, if you're gonna run single CPU, you're gonna run only 4 cores, 3.3 gigahertz, and in the modern games, it's not going to be enough. But 8 cores, physical cores in modern games will be more than enough, and as again, they're coming 4 cores per CPU, and it's just fantastic as again gaming system if you know what you're doing while disabling some cores. But as again, more about it is going to be in other video tutorials over the UHDking.com. So guys, 145 watt, when it's reaching 145 watt, pretty much when every single core is utilized, 18 physical cores, it's 145 watt on the CPU. Then it's pretty much lowering the multiplier to 24 multiplier. Okay, even if the temperature is cool, keep that in mind. So do not be mistaken. Only you can override this through the BIOS modification. But as again, if you're gonna get lucky, and more about it will be, and more information about it will be available over the UHDking.com. Here's the multipliers, guys. So 2 cores on this Xeon E5-2600 series V3 can run at 36 multiplier, while the Xeon E5-2600 series V2 only allowed 1 core at 36 multiplier and 2 cores at 35 multiplier. So over here we have an extra, and when you're running this in a dual socket, you can run 4 cores at 3600 multiplier, 36 multipliers, sorry, which will be 3600 megahertz or 3.6 gigahertz output per each core, okay, under maximum load. Keep that in mind, this is under maximum load scenarios, okay. And when you're running 4 cores per CPU, 3.3 gigahertz, like I told you, 33 multiplier, total output 8 cores, 3.3 gigahertz, more than enough for any games, guys, in 2022. Okay, and if not, enable the hyper threading technology and stay at 3.3 gigahertz. Okay, this is the technology that is supported for those who's curious. It supported SSE 4.2, but it's already outdated for the media library, and AVX is the best, but it doesn't have the, it has AVX1 and AVX2, it doesn't have AVX3, doesn't have AVX512. Okay, those libraries are much advanced and going to give you a boost in video encoding and even in 3D rendering. It depends how you're going to rasterize the images. So this is, guys, the, as again, the technology. Go ahead and press pause for those who's curious, who's building web servers and etc. As you can see, the videos that over the UHDking.com have multi-value and multi-angle in them. Okay, so motherboard, as again, unknown, but I already told you, but it can be under any Chinese brand, as I told you, but I told you the model number, and you're gonna look for the model number, and BIOS 1.11 or newer, because the previous BIOSes had some issues. Keep that in mind. Okay, chipset, here's the chipset, C612, just like I told you, solid bridge. So it's not X99, not Dual X99. It's not the EVGA board. It's something that Chinese made and something beautiful. Okay, and yeah, this is about the CPU, guys. I showed you everything what you need to know about the Titan RTX for those who's curious. Here is my Titan RTX, but as again, this is not about the Titan RTX. I'm not running SLI, so it's only a single video card is running. Beautiful bandwidth, as you can see, in terms of gigabytes per second. Okay. Oh yeah, guys, and one more thing. Check it out. I have something special for you. This is going to be giveaway number 13 of 25. This is going to be the AIDA64 EXtreme edition, latest version. Go ahead and download it from their website, AIDA64. Just Google it from their regional website, official. And this is the code. Put down the code, and you can use this, the same software that I used today, to benchmark your systems, your computers, and compare the performance. Compare them with your bodies, with the world, and etc. Alright, don't forget to smash that like button, guys. And as again, this is the winter holiday 2021 giveaway by UHDking, legal, prepaid. Thank you so much. So guys, I showed you everything what you need to know, I guess. You know, a lot of tests coming out of this system over the UHDking.com. It's going to be tests as workstation, tests as a gaming system. So I'm going to be focused on the as workstation, as well as the gaming, as well as low budget overall. Okay, for the folks who's looking to build a solid system, it's an enterprise CPU, so they're gonna last like 25 years at least while working 100% load every day. So it's a great buy. And as again, happy holidays, happy new year 2022. I wish you be healthy, wealthy, and happy. Don't forget to smash that like button, support me, guys, share it with your friends, and check out the Cinema 4D benchmarks, R15, R20, R23 out of this system, Corona, V-Ray, 3ds Max. I'm going to bench them all, and check it out. And I will see you guys in the next videos. I love this system. It's a great system, but there is a better buy in 2022, and I'm going to pretty much explain it to you over the UHDking.com. So stay tuned, smash that like button. Till the next time.